For the next session is Maya Shavin. She is very popular speaker for Vue community. So I have followed her for many conferences, and many conferences of her is about testing. So if you write about the testing or unit testing or end-to-end testing playwright, you have to follow Maya Shavin, and I am the one that and follow her for many conferences, and besides from the testing, she is the one of the popular contributor of Vue community. So I could say that Maya Shavin really want to join our this event. She really want to uh, speak in live as a live session, but she is really unable. But she try to make the pre-record for us, and especially this session is the new topic, the new session for Maya Shavin. We are the first one. We are the first event that have watched that we can watch the Maya Shavin session. So please welcome Maya Shavin. Woo!
Hey, welcome to my talk. And I'm really sad. What a pity that I'm not there in person. But well, I hope next time we will see each other in person. But meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed the first edition of ViewCon Thailand and my talk. And let's talk about testing, shall we? But first and foremost, my name is Maya Shavin, and I'm a senior software engineer at Microsoft and also an accessibility jam in my group that oversees accessibility compliance and trying to provide best practices and guidelines to help developer comply with accessibility during the development before release. I'm also Cloudinner Ambassador, a Vitest Israel organizer, and a Google developer expert on Vue on web technologies. You can follow me at Maya Shavin on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, or visit my website at mayashavin.com where I like to talk and write about all the experiments and what I learned during my journey in high tech. In addition, I'm currently the mom of four kids, which she actually three and plus one. My latest kid is about 1 month and a half, so I'm still in maternity leave. But hey, it's fun to be back to talk about things that I'm passionate about. I'm also an illustrator in free time, and I'm a book author, which, yeah, this is my book, Learn in View. I'm so excited to have this book released this year. If you are interested in learning Vue with TypeScript, check my book out. I hope you enjoy it. And that's it about myself. Let's go back to our main topic today. But first and foremost, let's talk about component testing in a front-end context, or we can say it front-end component testing. So what is front-end component testing? Well, in the sense of normal development, and especially for backend, component testing is like testing, or we can call it like unit testing. But for front-end, it's a bit different. For front-end component testing, it means that we have to validate that GUI element are functional as expected. GUI element means graphic user interface element, which in the other hand, we validate also the style, the class, the hooks, the component props, the data flow, the interaction between the component with other components and with user. And of course, when we talk about graphical user interface element or UI, we are talking about validate appearance, how it looks, how it functions, not just the functional testing. In the other hand, front-end component testing means we are validate how the component looks and appear to the end user on the browser and how it functions or interact with the user or with other components under the same parent or with its children components. And of course, once you validate things like this, you also need to validate the consistency, or we can call it regression test, between change, between feature added, removed, between bug fixes on different devices, on different browser, and so on. For this, I would say we divide front-end component testing in two aspects, two biggest aspects. The first one is behavioral or functional testing, which including how the component functions, so hooks, how it process data, how it take the interaction of user and reply to the user and so on. The other aspect of front-end component testing is actually visual UI testing, or we can call it UI testing. It's including how the component appear on the browser to the client, when to the end user, how it looks, color, image, style, layout, and so on. And of course, we also need to validate the consistency of the look whenever we add a new feature, we add a new button, so on and so forth, and not just test how it appears. We test how it appears, how it looks on different device, on different browser, on different operation system. And this is our main topic of today, visual testing or UI testing. So, but hold on a minute. We know the functional component testing including visual testing and UI testing. Remember this pyramid, which we have unit test, integration test, and end-to-end test. So where does visual testing, our functional component test, our front-end component testing fall into? Well, you can say it fall into unit testing or it can fall into end-to-end testing. It's make more sense is with end-to-end testing because in end-to-end you actually simulate the user actual flow or on the actual browser, right? But it's also can we also can have visual testing on unit tests by snapshot comparison, for example. So in this talk, we're going to explore what the difference between the visual testing in unit test and end-to-end test, and how we can combine these two in the same testing system for visual testing of a component. Before we move on, we're going to now we will take a look on the demo component. In this demo, we're going to use the search component from demo app that is Pizza Store. It have only three features: receive the search term and synchronize the search according to what the user type, and of course, it will emit the search term, the new search term, and the filter item that passed to it in beginning with by the new search term. Okay, simple. You can implement it in any way in Vue in a Vue component, but this is the main features that we're going to test on. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is visual testing on unit test with Vitest. Okay, so let's recap. What is Vitest? Vitest is a test runner that is super lightweight, super fast, and is a headless test runner in a Node.js environment. This was created for Vite projects, which is JavaScript projects, and mainly used for unit test integration tests. That's written in Node.js. But it's not only for Node.js. We can extend it to work with browser, mimicking the browser, and configure it to with other package to make sure that Vitest can run on specific framework applications so that Vue. So for Vue, when you install Vitest, you need to install also Vue Test Util or the package for testing library in Vue in order to get the set of API for assertions, a component in Vue, and also be able to get a set of methods that help you to render a component in a Vue environment with all the capability that you needed for running the test successfully. Okay, so let's talk about visual testing with Vitest. So for Vitest, like I said, it's a very generic test runner. So we won't have any um, for browser support here because we are using the Node environment. For browser environment, well, because it's in Node environment by default, when you run a test on a component which is for front end for browser, you need to have extra implementations for DOM API and HTML standards, such as JSDOM or HappyDOM. This package will provide the APIs like query selector, like to have attribute and query by row and so on, so that you can associate according to the DOM API or even window objects, for example. It does have the visual testing by default using snapshot comparison with the function to match snapshot, but very limited, and why we're going to take a look in the next slide. For visual testing with Vitest, since it's the generic test runner for unit test and integration test, you cannot test per device, you cannot test per browser, and you cannot add behavior accessibility testing. You can test the area standard, but for anything that require navigation, user interaction, actual user interaction for accessibility, this doesn't work. Okay, let's take a look of how we set it up and we try our test. So first of all, you need to set up the environment at JSDOM or HappyDOM, whatever you feel like. And then you can just use the function, just mount the component at the wrapper, and then expect the mounted component to match the snapshot. That's it. We have this visual testing for in Vitest implemented. In the first run, it would generate the snapshot in the locations that we define in the vitest.config for snapshot. And then you can open the snap, and then whenever it runs the second run, it will try to match the snapshot with the new snapshot and see whether it's the same. Okay, so we can take a look at the snapshot, and the reason why I say it's limited because the snapshots is actually virtual node, it means node, JavaScript. And you can see here that is not something that you can look and understand straight away what is this component. And whenever you make a change, let's say I change the label to search label, the snapshot will fail. In order to make sure that the snapshot updated, we have another command called vitest/u. And then when you run this, it will run like the normal Vitest run, but it will automatically update the snapshot to the latest code. And this is something pretty dangerous because when you do something like that, it kind of erases on the idea of snapshot testing because you can just update the snapshot and you will never find the bugs. You never see what went wrong and what can be wrong. And since it's hard to read, it's not very maintainable, or it's not very reliable because no one can understand what is written in the snapshot except for tree and object and so on. But the bigger component, the harder to understand it. Okay, so next. So that is visual testing in unit test in Vitest. What can we do with other end-to-end test runners such as Playwright for visual testing? Let's take a quick look about it. So Playwright as the test runner is the browser-based test runner for end-to-end test in web application. So it's pretty freaking fast and isolated, and it has component testing features that is specifically for testing component, not testing the whole application or whole page. And it cross language. So if your project have two different language, one for backend, one for frontend, using Playwright can be a very beneficial for your application management. Okay, so let's take a look how we enable visual testing in Playwright. First, we're using component testing. So we go to install something called Playwright Experimental City View package for component testing. And when we install it, it will auto-generate for us Playwright config specifically for component testing with all the browser, the basic browser we want to test. And then we can go to the spec like test file, import the test extract from this package, and write the text as normal because we in Playwright we can write JSX here, and then we can just use the function screenshot, and we passed the path. Where do we want, what format and what name of the screenshot they want to generate under. And we can also use full page, but for component, full page will not do anything much. In the other hand, we can use the screenshot function of page or method of page. Similar syntax, we can pass the path and we can enable full page to make sure they capture the whole page as this is in the browser, and we can run it. And this is how we run the test. Okay, and then when we run the test, well, I've kind of break the test, so let's just move on. And if you look at the screenshot, so for component screenshot, it's only the component, but for the page, it's displayed the whole page. So really depend on how you want to do it. With this screenshot, you can actually do manual look at this and see, okay, whether it's rendered correctly, because render ad is, so you can really see, look and feel what you see, what you get. And you can also upload it to a cloud, integrate with a third party, a smart tool to do comparison between the two screenshot and see whether which one is not doesn't match in the automation process. Okay, so we also have full accessibility testing with additional package as called Playwright, and it sounds cool, right? But that's not the point of this talk. Here comes the next question. So I stand along. Obviously, Vitest have more limited. Playwright have a lot more advantage towards end-to-end test or visual testing for component, since they have component testing also. But the question in this talk is, can we have the similar power of Playwright in Vitest to support full browser visual testing? Well, the answer is yes, kind of. With Vitest browser mode, you can have this together in the same Vitest in the same test runner. How are we going to do it? Especially with Playwright, what we do is we install the package called Vitest/browser. Okay, this package will enable the browser features, more features for Vitest, and then we to write a function. We write the command nps vitest init browser, and it will walk it through the configuration automatically to set up the environment, the configuration ready, and even the sample test ready for browser mode. And yes, of course, you can choose View, we can choose another browser, Chromium, or we can choose another browser provider, not just Playwright, can WebDriver.io or something. In this talk, we're going to use Playwright. Okay, and then that's not it. We need to do extra setup because in our application we have unit test and we have browser test, and this doesn't really work together because the test runner need to know different mode, different configuration in order to run the test correctly and not throw error. So we need to provide different test configuration, like in here, you can see one is for unit test where I set the environment to be JSDOM and pass the included directory of files that's meant to be for unit test. And for browser test, I have the object browser where I enable the browser and pass the target browser, the provider, and other options of the provider inside the configuration. And with that, I add another command to point the command Vitest. When to run the Vitest, with Vitest, it will use this workspace file instead of the normal vitest.config file. Okay, and with that, let's go to do a quick demo. Okay, sorry. So in this demo, this is the search bar, and I already have the component, okay, and now I already have the end-to-end test right here. So one of the idea that we can actually copy it and move it to browser, and now instead of using the component testing view package, we can just use the normal Vitest package, and we're going to update the root path to the component, okay? And because we are in Vitest and not in Playwright native environment for writing the test, we cannot use JX. Instead, we're using the normal mount and we do the prop. And of course, This will not available here because it's not on the server, it's not on actual Playwright, it's going through Vitest. So instead of now, we're using render function from Vitest browser view, okay? And then locator, some of the native function of Playwright will not present in the browser mode of Vitest yet. So instead of locator, we would do get by test ID, and instead of ID, we put the test ID, which is the search input. And here we get by text, where we get the text of, we get the component by passing the text of the label, okay? And we keep everything the same except for component doesn't have a screenshot. Instead, we will use the element where we take the screenshot of that element, the input element, and we also the page not here. So instead, we will use the page from context of Vitest browser context package. Okay, and we will just pass element. Oh, yes, because this one work, and since a label is the locator is always true, and it will return the element, and we can the actual element we can do to be truthy, okay? And to have value, element is allocated and not an element, so we also need to use the same function, element, to get that, okay? And similarly, we don't need this test, just for the purpose here. Okay, so now let's run the test, okay? So once I run the test, you can see here, it will run the test, it run the unit test, and then it start running the browser test. And you can see the test, and this one is done. It shows us the GUI where we can see all the passing running, and each of the tests will have the label to tell us exactly whether it's the unit test or it's a browser test. And you can see the UI, can interact it, can check in different device, and we also have the dashboard. Awesome, right? And that's it. We have full visual visual testing together with unit testing for component in Vitest with the help of Playwright. Very little, and we don't need to install the whole Playwright standalone. It do everything for us. Okay, cool. Before we finish, what we expected for Vitest browser mode with Playwright. Well, the pros are obviously we have everything in one place, everything, and we can also actually test in our component in the kind of the isolated mode with the actual browser, with actual UI, and with actual data. And we can have a one UI to see on the report on the status of the test. And we don't need to run different command and different mode for different kind of tests here. And of course, the biggest disadvantage of the mode at the moment is that it's in preview mode, so some of the functionality is not there yet, but I'm sure it will be there very soon, and that I'm sure that VTest team is working very hard on that. But meanwhile, check it out. In browser mode, you may not need component unit testing anymore. Instead, you can use unit test plus component testing with VTest browser mode and Playwright. And remember, that's what a component does, not how it does it. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed my talk. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to me. I will be I will be happy to answer any questions and see if I can help you in any case. And have a great day and enjoy the conference.